All right, so we are on to class methods. We just finished up our second in-class exercise. Class methods are functions inside of a class, right? So if it's if you hear somebody calling something a method, they're probably talking about a class, or they should be. Methods they're basically functions, but they're only callable in the instances of a class, or on the instances. So I can't call on a function inside or a method inside of a class, right? I can't call that unless I have actually instantiated the class. Okay, so creating one, we're going to make a shopping bag, and it will have a number of functions inside of it. This will be one of the more complicated pieces of code that we've put together, but it's also really cool because it's kind of like, oh, this is sort of how code works in real life. It's pretty neat. So we're going to focus on creating a class and then calling it. You don't have to, if you're making if you're doing object-oriented programming, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. I have some tips and tricks for keeping it consistent and easy as well, but we'll get there when we get there. First, we're going to do things this way, and we can talk about some other ideas and ways of going about this. But we've got class shopping bag. Cool, right? We're going to make a doc string here, right? So that if someone's like, what do I do with a shopping bag? It will give them some directions, okay? It says the shopping bag class will have handles, capacity, and items to place inside, right? I don't want this to get too wide here. Attributes for the class. This is going to be so that if somebody's trying to make this class and they're not familiar with it, they know what they're supposed to pass in. We're going to have handles, expected to be an integer. We're going to have capacity, which is expected to be a string or an integer. And then we're going to have items, which will be expected to be a list. All right, now we're going to see how this all plays out. First thing we're going to do is we're going to define our what kind of function automatically classes need to have. If you're going to pass data around, think about it. We've written a whole bunch of them. It's a dunder init, right? And it's going to take self, and then like we just said, it's going to take handles, capacity, and items. All right, there we go. We're going to set the self attribute for all of them. Self handles, self.capacity equals capacity, and then self.items equals items. Okay, then we're going to write a method. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. That shows the items in our shopping bag. Okay, and this will be for our this is our items list. Okay, so we're going to end up taking on that list and we're going to end up printing it out. So we're going to do def show shopping bag, and that will take self, which keeps it connected with the data with the other stuff. Right, it's like giving it an internet connection. Print, you have items in your bag, right? And then for item in self.items, we're going to print the item. Okay, again, this is a for loop. Items is a list, so we're just going to say for every item inside of this list, go ahead and print that thing out. Pretty straightforward. Okay, we're going to have one that will show the capacity of shopping bag, how much room is left. Okay, so define show capacity self, and we'll say for this one we just want to print the f string. Your capacity is, or actually instead of that we're going to say you have room for self.capacity minus the length. Nah, we're not going to do that. We're just going to roll with saying what your capacity is. I was going to subtract the capacity from the length of our shopping list. We might go back and do that later. I just want to get the basic part of this done first, though, to show how this works. And then we'll go back and we can make it pretty later. Add items to the items list for the shopping bag. Let's be consistent. It's class. Define add to shopping. Add to shopping bag. Sometimes your brain does something and your fingers are just on their own adventure. So we're going to add to shopping bag. Products equals input. Woo! What? You like to add. And then we're going to add whatever that data is, whatever they give, we're going to add that to our products, right? So self.items. So this means we're going to go find our items list, and then we're going to append our products. Okay? So they can do that. Pretty cool. And we're going to change the capacity of the shopping bag. Right? And so this would be, the user would put this in, and that will actually end up changing our capacity. So define change bag capacity, self, and then capacity. Self.capacity equals capacity. So this would mean that you could overwrite that within the actual class itself. We'll see how that plays out in a little bit. We can have increase the capacity of the shopping bag. I should be consistent here too. Shopping bag by 10. We'll say by a default amount that we set to 10. That'd be a good way of explaining that. So def increase capacity, and inside of this we'll have self changed capacity, and we're going to default that equal to 10. And then when we run this function, we'll say if self.capacity is instance, there's no caps there, of self.capacity, and it is a string. Okay, we're going to print, and shoot, I gotta do this. We can't add that here. Okay, so this would be if you're trying to add a word, right? Like say, hey, we have 7 items left, or like we have a capacity of 10 items in our shopping bag. You put 10 items in, so the capacity is full, and you say, hey, I want to make my bag bigger, right? And you say, I want my bag bigger by books items, right? You give it a word instead of a number. It's like, I need 5 more items to be able to fit in my bag. Okay, that would be what this is for. Now, obviously, in the digital world, this is not usually a huge issue, running out of room for things like this, right? Amazon is not going to say you can't shop for that many things. They don't care. But some of this is just extra examples of how this code works, how this runs. So there's our if statement, and we say otherwise if it is a integer, because again, we're only going to take a integer or a string, ideally, and then self.capacity plus equals changed capacity. So there you go. All right, so that's all of our functions here. Okay, now right now if I run this, nothing will happen, right? It's not going to do anything. Pretty quiet. Calling it is a little different. So, so far we created an instance of the shopping bag. Or not an instance, we created the idea of the shopping bag. Now we will actually like instantiate and make one. and use it. Pretty cool. So let's say you're feeling swanky and healthy. So you say Whole Foods bag. We don't have Whole Foods in Alaska. Shopping bag. 2, 10, and then an empty list. Okay. So what this says is that the Whole Foods bag is an example. It's a version of a shopping bag that has 2 handles, because they're handles, right? That's how you hold a bag. 10 capacity, so you can put 10 items in there, and it's an empty list right here. It doesn't have anything in it. We don't have any items inside our Whole Foods bag yet. Okay? Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to create a function to run the shopping bag methods on our Whole Foods bag instance, right? So we have this Whole Foods bag. We're going to run these functions. We're going to write another function that actually is in charge of choosing which ones of these to run. And the way that I kind of think about this is you have sort of like a single function that helps you kind of, we would say that it runs your logic, but I guess in not nerdy terms, you have a function that's kind of in charge of picking which things to run, right? And so we'll see that here, that we've got a couple elif statements that respond to user input, and then depending on what the user says, they will pick different functions here, different methods from our shopping bag. It will pick different methods and run those for us, right? Because right now, if I were to try and just run one of these, I would have to type every single line out, right? Whole Foods bag dot show shopping bag, and then another line, Whole Food bag dot change bag capacity. You know what I mean? Like, I'd have to pick each one of these things and write that whole thing out. It's easier for us to write a function and then run that function, and then we'll actually be able to do this all at once. So that kind of like automates it, because again, I've said before, programmers are lazy. Rather do more work right now and then not do hardly any work later, right? That's the idea here. So we're going to make a function. We're going to call it run, okay? And this run function's job is going to make these things, it's going to be to make those things happen. So it doesn't take anything in. We're just going to put a while loop in here. We'll say while true. Response is going to be a variable that's inside of our while loop, and it's going to be input. And we'll say, what do you want to do? Add, show, or quit. Okay. Now, we did not put our capacity stuff in here, right? We will do that a different way in a moment. I'm going to put a space here. Okay. Now, so far, all that's going to happen is just going to keep on asking over and over and over again, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Right? We haven't actually selected any of these yet. So we've made an instance, but we haven't accessed it or done anything here yet. So now we're going to start actually accessing those things. So if response.lower equals quit. Okay? And this means that if they were to write quit like that, it would correct it so that then we don't have to write functions for, well, what if they write it with just the first letter capitalized? Well, what if they write it lower? This just takes care of all of it, lowercases it, and that is really useful. It helps us kind of filter our, or sort of collect all of the user answers that use those characters. So then we're going to do Whole Foods bag. We'll do show shopping bag, so that when they quit, it will show them what's in, and it will say, thanks for shopping. For shopping. Right? And then we will break, and that will stop the while loop. Okay? This is our only break statement that we're putting in here because we want this to keep going until they check out, right? If they add something to our shopping bag, we don't want to just quit then, right? You have to have them check out. Okay? So, whoops. Then we'll have an elif, right? And that will say if response dot lower equals add, right? If they say I want to add stuff to my bag, we will run Whole Foods bag dot add to, I don't know where that came from, add to shopping bag. Okay. And that will then run this function. Okay. And it will ask them what you'd like to add. And then when they write something in, it will add that to our items list. Okay. So you see how here, again, it's a lot of moving parts. I highly recommend that you spend, after this video is done, you spend another good 10 minutes just looking through and playing around with how changing these different data items, that kind of thing, practice calling the different things in your own code. But spend some time learning how we set this up and how it works, because it will help you just reading and rereading and following the threads throughout this code. But this means that it will run the add to shopping bag function, and this will happen. Okay. And then we're going to have one more elif, and if response dot lower equals show, then we will run Whole Foods bag dot show shopping bag, right? Because what if they don't want to quit? They just want to know what they have, right? Check my cart, but I don't want to check out yet. So there's that. And else, right? If they put in something that's not add, show, or quit, we'll say try another command, right? That'll just be our little backup thing. Now again, if I run this cell, will anything happen? No, right? This function handles our logic. You can see that it's got our decision-making process here, but I haven't run the function. So I have to actually call on the function to run here. And that is very simple. Now, what's nice about this is that later on, we'll get to places where you have a button, right, on your code. Very simple little button. And you want for that button, when you click it, to run a function. Now, this is very easy to put inside of there, right? You can say, hey, when I click this button, run, okay? This is a lot more complicated to try and put inside of a button. And this is real complicated to try and put inside of a button. But when our code points to other code, it makes it way simpler, because then you can write one line and run pages and pages and pages of documents, right? Imagine when you click, how much code probably runs when you click the checkout button on Amazon, right? There's so much stuff that happens all at once. It's really cool how much stuff they have connected. With Google, imagine that you make a new Gmail account, right? There's so much data that goes on when you do that. Adding a photo on Instagram. All this other stuff happens. All you did was click one button, right? And so it's running all of this stuff in the background on other places, but all you did was push a button that just had one little function that probably ran with that, which is really neat. So I'm going to have to actually run this cell first, because we actually need to make the class, otherwise we'll have an error. So make sure you run this one, and then you can run this one. By the way, I'm using Command Enter or Control Enter on Windows. That's my shorthand for running a cell block. So if you've been watching that and wondering how I'm so fast and cool, that's how. All right, so calling. What would you like to do? Let's add something. Okay, I would like to add grapes. Cool. I would like to add again, and I'm going to add LaCroix. Again, that's just on my desk from yesterday. I'm going to add some books. It's a weird thing to have at Whole Foods. I haven't been to Whole Foods in years, so I have no idea. Maybe they have a book section now. But please don't eat books. And then let's say show. Oh, we have a problem. Oh, that's because I wrote print incorrectly. That would be a problem. Where did I write print wrong? Show. There it is. There's a problem. All right, we're going to have to go back and rerun this. I got to run this one too to save it. Add. Yeah, see there? Now it's bad. Add grapes. Add waffles. Add books. And then show me, right? You have items in your bag. Grapes, waffles, and books. Okay. If you want just a little bit of fun, you can try and say that you can try and write some logic in here to handle what if there are no items. Okay, and then when I quit, it shows me what I have and says, thanks for shopping, and that's the end, right? So what I'm asking you to do just for fun would be, what if I don't have anything in here? Because right now it says you have items in your bag, but I don't. Okay, so figure out a way to do that. That would just be wise for you to learn to do. Just a little bit of practice using it inside of a method and start playing around with some of the stuff. All right, modifying an attribute's value through a method. Okay, so we're going to have show the capacity, right? These are those other functions we're talking about. Whole Foods bag dot show capacity, right? That'll run the function. And then we're going to have print capacity after the change. And then we're going to have another line where we actually change the bag capacity. Man, this change bag capacity. And now we're actually going to end up passing the number 40 in for the capacity. So let's go back and look at change bag capacity, right? Here, we're actually putting this capacity in, and it's changing it to a certain amount, right? Because originally, we gave it an amount of 10, right? And in this case, we're giving it more. Now, you'll also notice that if I were to add more than 10 items here, it would not end up stopping. That could be another cool little project for you to do on your own if you want to get really good at this. To find a way to write some code in here that would take this capacity, whatever gets passed in, and if the length of our items list is too long, is greater than this, then stop it, break the loop, or alternatively say you need to add more capacity or switch out some items, that kind of thing. Could be nifty, right? But here we're going to change the capacity to 40, and then we're going to do Whole Foods bag, and then we're just going to show the capacity. Okay, and now when I run it, it says your capacity is 10, because again, that's what we passed in here, right? We save the capacity, and then the capacity after the change, it says your capacity is 40, right? And so that's adding it and showing what our capacity is. Cool. Incrementing an attribute's value through a method. We're going to use the increase capacity function. Again, this is just more practice with showing how to call on different functions and how they interact with each other. I guess not functions, the methods inside of our class here. So we have Whole Foods bag dot show capacity, right? And this will tell us what our capacity is, which right now should be what? 40. Okay, and we're going to print after increase, right? And then on the next line, we'll have Whole Foods bag dot increase capacity, and this will run that function that added it by 10. And then Whole Foods bag dot show capacity. Okay, so there we go. So it was 40 because that's where we had it right here. We'd run that, and so it was 40 when we came in, and then after the increase, we could increase the capacity by 10 just by running this, which would be really useful if every time that a shopper got to their full capacity or close to it, you could just automatically say, hey, if they're within 5 items of having a full cart, just add 10 more items, right? And they keep going until now they're at 5 items of full again, right? And you can add 10 more spaces. And this would be helpful if you were worried about space, whether that's digital or physical, right? If you were working with something like memory, right? And you didn't want to use up tons of memory, right? Like you didn't want to default to like 1,000 items for every cart when they're only going to shop for probably 2 or 3 items, okay? Especially if you have your own servers and you're dealing with your own storage stuff. You don't want to run out of storage because of silly reasons. You want to be wise with that. So automating how that storage increases or decreases, super cool. All right, exercise 3. Okay, add a method that takes in 3 parameters of year, doors, and seats. This is for another car class. Okay, and prints out a formatted print statement with make, model, years, seats, and doors, right? So you're going to take in that other stuff, and then you're going to print out a statement that says this car is a year and is a make, model, and has X doors and Y seats. All right, so That's what you're going to do. You're going to take two parameters inside the init, right, which are make and model. Inside of the car class, create a method that has 4 parameters, right? So you're going to actually have another method, another function in there, and that's going to take on all 4 of these things. And then once you take in all of that data, you'll have another function probably, just a thought, probably, and that will end up printing that whole thing out. And then you have to figure out how to do the logic handling and the decision making for calling that function, that method, and running the entire thing after you instantiate the class. So, have fun.